Hey, what's up everyone? It's been a while since my E3 video covering Bloodborne, and a ton of new information has come out, including a release date. February 5th for Japan, and I would not be surprised to get a worldwide release shortly thereafter. Since Gamescom, a playable demo for the public has been making the rounds at conventions, and I got a great deal of hands-on time with Bloodborne at PAX Prime, which I just got back from last week. Basically, I just kept getting back in line for it. I got in line for Bloodborne about 6 times. I beat the boss of the demo twice. So I'm going to be taking you through my impressions along with some news and some analysis and speculation about the game. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you footage of the live gameplay from the show floor because filming wasn't allowed. So there's going to be trailers looping and the 6-minute direct feed from Gamescom in the background. Okay, so first off, the atmosphere. From moment one, it is totally engrossing. What makes that especially impressive is that you're standing on the show floor, you're playing around with these poor-fitting headphones, the convention itself is all around you, it's busy, it's noisy, it's crowded, it's a convention. And yet, the moment you start playing, you are totally absorbed. Yharnam is horrific, it's oppressive, it's gloomy, the streets are blanketed in fog, everything is warped and grotesque. I've often described the Souls games as being really effective survival horror games, on top of being action RPGs. That horror influence already seems to be at its strongest in this game, compared to the last 3 Souls games, just from the demo. Blood and disease seem to be like the core themes, not just for the story, but the aesthetics. It's oppressive, and you're just constantly hearing things in the background, like shrieking in the distance, pounding on doors. It's really unsettling. You feel totally isolated while you're plopped into this world. It's got this very cool Victorian Gothic aesthetic to it. It gets away from the high fantasy they kind of steered towards. They drifted that way as the Souls series progressed. Interestingly, Miyazaki cited Bram Stoker's Dracula as inspiration for Yharnam. And also, I talked about this in the last Bloodborne video, but Miyazaki was gunning for Latria as the benchmark for atmosphere. And I'm starting to believe they can pull that off, too. Alright, on to the gameplay. So to start off, they give you 2 pre-built loadouts to choose from. One was designated as the light class. It used the saw cleaver you've all seen a ton in the trailers, along with a blunderbuss. And the other one was heavy. It used this transforming axe that turned into something like a halberd, along with a pistol. From has previously said that character creation is 100% going to be in the game, so I'm guessing the loadouts were just for the demo to keep things moving along without having people fiddle around with character creation for 10 minutes. I played with both of those loadouts a little bit, and I wound up liking the heavy build with the axe quite a bit more. Now, even though it was labeled as like the heavy build, it didn't appear noticeably slower or sluggish at all. Bloodborne in general just feels very fast, very crisp and fluid. Plus, I wound up liking the moveset on the transform version of the axe, that halberd, quite a bit. It has this 3-hit string where it starts out with a horizontal sweep, it follows up with the next hit with an overhead, and then the last hit in that combo is a thrust forward, a poke. Plus, it has a really good jump attack. Next, a couple of control scheme changes were immediately apparent. For one, L1 no longer blocks. In previous trailers, it looked like you could block with a weapon despite the fact that there were no shields and that there apparently aren't going to be shields. I didn't notice a way to block with the weapon though, if that feature is still intended to be in. Instead, L1 now transforms your right-hand weapon. This also has the effect of switching you from one-handing the weapon to two-handing it, since the larger transform version of weapons causes you to stow your gun and wield it with both hands. That function used to be bound to triangle or Y on the 360 pad, but now it's tied to the L1 weapon transformation system. I picked up on an awesome little detail too. You can transform the weapon mid-swing to get extra range as needed, or to just change in the moveset on the fly. So triangle is now a dedicated quick heal button. Throughout the demo, I was collecting items called blood vials. They seem to function as the new Estus flask. The HUD keeps a tally of how many you have on the bloodstain to the left of the health and stamina bar. So hitting triangle will just consume one. I couldn't tell if it was a full heal or if it was just healing me for a massive amount. The consumption of these blood vials also happens insanely quick. Too quick, maybe. And I didn't have a hard time finding them either. I built up a pretty good stock every time I played. I felt like I was possibly finding way too many. My speculation is going to be that it'll be some kind of reward or punishment associated with stocking too many vials up instead of using them. Kind of a risk-reward system. Or maybe you get a reward if you don't heal with these really hefty healing options. Alternatively, if you drink too many, it might fill and have some kind of detrimental effect, kind of like what we've been hearing about with this whole beast mode transformation thing. It seems tied to that. And that could explain why they are so common. So hitting L2 will fire the gun. Guns aren't terribly powerful in Bloodborne. They're more based around utility. For starters, your ammo is limited, so using the gun is a real choice. You don't want to just burn through all of your ammo in trivial situations. The gun helped a lot with crowd control and staggering enemies to give me breathing room. Opened up enemies for attack by staggering them. It was also crucial for a new type of critical attack, counter shots, which I'll talk about later. Finally, holding R2 seems to charge your attack now. I didn't play around with that too much, but seems like an interesting new wrinkle. The rest of the controls changed only kind of subtly, but the button mapping was just about identical. So you have your mix of heavy and light swings with R1 and R2, running is still in by holding down circle. Interestingly, quick climbing ladders is still in, the mechanic that was introduced in Dark Souls 2, but it no longer consumes stamina, so that's a nice little quality of life change. Also, I couldn't tell if there was an alternate button mapping for jumping like they added in Dark Souls 2, but that's obviously still in. One of the biggest change in how the existing mechanics work has to do with rolling and dashing. Rolling now happens when you're not locked onto an enemy and you hit circle. When you're locked onto an enemy, though, and you hit circle, you'll either backdash, or if you're hitting a direction, you'll dash from side to side and sometimes around enemies. This dash is completely different from what you're used to with the current backdash as it exists in Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 2. It is lightning quick, and you dash very, very far. You can definitely put some distance between yourself and enemies if you want to with the dash. Also, it seemed like if you wait to hit the dash until the enemies are right about to hit you, you will dash either further away or further behind them. In some instances, I was side dashing like a full 180 degrees around enemies right before their blades touched me. I couldn't check like weapon stats or anything like that, or character stats to mess around with the equipment load and see how that works in this game. All the rolls felt very fast, whether that was the light loadout or the heavy loadout, but it all seems very fast, very focused on aggression, and very focused on increased mobility. Moving on, there were a limited set of consumables available in the demo. We had pebbles and we had Molotovs, basically. Molotovs, as you can imagine, served as firebombs. They were really, really effective, but very limited in how many I actually found. Pebbles, on the other hand, kind of had an unexpected utility. Early in the demo, you get this glimpse of a town square where there are burning bodies and a pyre in the center. This mob of grotesque townspeople are patrolling the streets, on top of the static placement of enemies around the area. So you have a couple of options there. You can try to take them all head on. You can try to mow them down with firebombs, long-ranged horizontal sweeps with a transformed weapon. That option was suicide. You would easily get overwhelmed trying to do that. You could carefully tail the patrol and duck into alleyways and upstairs to bypass them. Or you could throw pebbles at individuals to pick them off methodically. You could pull them out of the mob to fight them one-on-one. And that kind of gets into another point, is that even though the pace of combat itself has quickened dramatically, while you're exploring around the world, and even while you're fighting, that sense of methodical, tactical, and strategic play is still absolutely there. You make your way around the world slowly. Around every corner, you're just dreading what's going to be there. You're planning, you're anticipating. In combat, you are lightning quick, though, but it's no less methodical. The level design was also full of just these awesome little subtle details. Even in the demo, there was a ton to explore. Yharnam appears to be sectioned off into districts, which are going to serve as kind of like self-contained little levels, it seems. The one I played was the one that you've probably all seen in the Gamescom footage and the direct feed footage. Another one they talked about a lot and they showed in trailers was the Hemwick Cemetery District. There's another area which you appear to traverse in the daytime, so I'm not sure if that means there's a dynamic day-night cycle, or if some areas you'll just make it to and it'll be daylight out there, or how that's going to work. We are starting to see the variety in the levels come out, though, but it's all tied together with a really consistent internal aesthetic. Now, getting back to combat, though, one-on-one, you can really see a number of new systems shine. There was one huge enemy pounding on a sealed door with this gigantic hammer. I'm going to use him as my example for a few systems. For starters, there doesn't appear to be any more parrying or riposting, at least not with the weapons we had access to with the demo. Backstabbing is still in. I'm not sure about the guard break critical from Dark Souls 2. However, there is a new type of critical attack, which I alluded to earlier, and that new critical appears to be effective against a huge variety of enemies, including ones much, much bigger than you, including the demo boss, the Cleric Beast. And that new critical is called Countershot. It works very similar. So as an enemy is winding up to bring down his weapon on you, if you shoot that enemy just before the attack lands, if you time it right, they become staggered and you can follow up with a critical attack. It was really, really easy to pull off, much easier than parrying. It wasn't as devastating as a riposte, though, which seems to be the trade-off for it being easier to do. Not sure if that's going to change or not. Right now, it seemed almost trivial to get those counter shots in. You were more constrained by available ammo for your gun than your actual ability to pull that off. So between that, the insane speed and the mobility of the dash, the on-the-fly weapon transformation, combat's already feeling just perfectly fluid and really fast. It honestly fits like a glove. It's very, very aggressive. But on top of that, they've added a secondary health regeneration mechanic. When you get hit, your health goes down, but there's this little yellow trail that appears on your bar. Think of it like red health from a fighting game, where, depending on the game, there are ways to partially recover some of the damage you take. If you attack within a few moments of getting hit, you can regain some of that lost health. It's not a preposterous amount, but it's enough to make you feel like you're desperately clinging to life. There's a lot of tension there, that feeling about a life or death struggle, which seems to be pretty consistent with what Miyazaki's goal was. There's an interview where he was like, it's not just health, it's your will to live, and as you lose health, you're moving closer to despair and you're losing the will to live. But you can fight back and cling to hope and move away from that despair. If you're not careful, I will say, if you just kind of panic and flail away thinking that'll take you through and get all your health back, that's going to get you killed frequently. There seems to be an emphasis on making smart trades and risk and reward. I am kind of worried that if poise is still a thing, that the regeneration system might favor trading hits while wearing super heavy, high defense, high poise armor like hovels, if something like that even exists in Bloodborne. I'm slightly worried about that, but we'll see how that turns out. So to wrap this up, some general stuff that didn't fit in with the rest of my thoughts, a little bit of speculation and stuff we still don't know or have to figure out. So the game has been in development since Artorias of the Abyss came out. There has been talk about how some checkpointing will exist, similar to the bonfires of Dark Souls. Details on that are still unknown. The hitboxes, just based on the demo, seemed really crisp this time around. Seems like they paid a lot of attention to improving the hitboxes. Not only were the blood spurts, when you hit an enemy or when you get hit, coming out from the exact spot that the weapon lands on, the hitboxes seemed much more precise this time around. Nothing like Smelter Demon's ridiculous hitboxes that appear out of thin air. Everything seems more or less pretty accurate. For the demo, there didn't appear to be any kind of currency or agency in character creation like I mentioned earlier, likely just for demo purposes. One minor little nitpick I had, it seemed like there was a really nasty delay on picking items up and then closing the confirmation window that pops up that tells you what the item is. It seemed like it just took too long, which I can imagine adding up to be kind of a non-trivial frustration over the course of like a 30, 40, 50-hour game where you're constantly picking things up. Finally, we haven't really seen any of the classic online stuff we're used to from the Souls game, stuff like the bloodstains, the phantoms, the messages. They've said that they're definitely doing online again. They want to do something new with it. I believe one of the quotes in regards to the new online system had something to do with the free sharing of exploration. And then also PvP is also going to be in the final game. They said they wanted it to be more seamless this time around. What that means, we still don't know. They did throw around the, they wanted to capture a wider audience phrase again when talking about the online specifically. I'm speculating that that could mean that there's some kind of system in place, like how in Dark Souls 2 players can summon other players into the DLC for co-op, even if that summoned player doesn't own the DLC. Or like how in Far Cry 4, how you can give your friends access to the game if you own it, but they don't, with the only catch being that they have to play it with you. In any case, I really doubt this means that they're watering it down. We heard the mistranslated line about appealing to a wider audience before with Dark Souls 2. We heard something similar before Dark Souls 1 came out. I really doubt they're watering this one down. The demo itself was toned down, they've said. The difficulty was toned down from what the main game will be, and people were still dropping like flies. It still feels like a Souls game in essence. And that's it. My experiences with it at PAX laid bare, and we're not too far from release either, so I doubt I'm going to be getting any more hands-on prior to release, but that's fine. I'm looking forward to February. Bloodborne is very familiar for fans of FromSoft, particularly fans of the Souls games. It's stepping forward and shaking things up, but it feels like a natural evolution and not a complete reinvention. It's got that same emphasis on methodical play, but the pace of combat itself has just quickened and picked up a lot of depth to boot and become just so satisfying. Overall, I'm really excited about Bloodborne. If they can keep the rest of the game feeling as good as that little vertical slice, that demo, this is going to be one for the ages. And Miyazaki and FromSoft have a pretty well-proven pedigree, enough so that I have faith that this demo is representative of what the final game is going to be like. This one is gearing up to be something special. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like this video, be sure to leave a comment, drop me a like, and subscribe. Take it easy. Have a good one.